This is Real News Media TV, coverage you can trust. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates. Good morning, my Real News Media TV family. Welcome back to the channel for another news update for November 22, 2022. And in the news, a co-worker stunned after two men die in train crash. A thick pall of sorrow permeated the air on Monday as the co-workers of two men killed in Sunday night's train crash struggled to cope. The dead men have been identified as Clarendon resident Shane Brownman Powell, a security guard employed to Secure World Corporation, and the Discovery Bauxite Operations Limited train operator Orlando Brown, who is from Brownstown, St. Anne. The news was told that the men were on board the bauxite train when it developed mechanical problems, derailed, and crashed into a gully in Retreat, St. Anne. Both received multiple injuries and died on the spot. The scene was processed and their bodies taken to a morgue. The crash occurred about 10 p.m. On Monday, co-workers spoke highly of Powell. They asked not to be identified by name. He was a good officer, one of those persons on the quieter side. Right now I'm trying to cope. But apart from me, there are also other persons who are affected, one guard told the news. Another described his co-worker as humble. Brownman was a humble youth who don't really talk much, but that is just how life is sometimes, he said. People living in Retreat were also left stunned. Train turnover already, but nobody never did, so this is very sad. Me not related to none of the persons who died, but me feel it, God know, said one woman who gave her name as a Chinese. According to Discovery Bauxite Partners, all rail operations have been suspended to facilitate detailed investigations into the cause of the derailment. The company's vice president and country manager, Delroy Dell, has expressed his condolences to those affected. I know that employees will be deeply moved by this tragedy, he said. $30 billion a prison on table. The government has received an unsolicited bid from a prominent Jamaican developer to construct a $30 billion prison on 300 acres of land in Heartland's St. Catherine, a well-placed source has disclosed. The proposed prison would be built on 100 acres and accommodate up to 3,500 inmates, with facilities to include a courthouse and a hospital. The remaining 200 acres would be used for skills training and farming, as well as for subsistence. The developer would finance the upfront cost to build the prison while engaging the government in a public-private partnership in its operations, the news understands. While not confirming the precise price tag of the proposed state-of-the-art prison, National Security Minister Dr. Harris Chang acknowledged that there was a formal proposal among other exploratory overtures. Chang said that the state-run Development Bank of Jamaica was being engaged in serious consultancy to take charge of the project and oversee the crafting of a complete business plan, which would examine several variables, including social impact. The National Security Minister characterized the new phase as the end of the beginning. We have been looking at building a new prison facility. There has been preliminary work done by the ministry. Figures have ranged from $8 billion to $40 billion or $50 billion. There's no hard figure, he said during a news interview late Monday. Chang said that the push for a new prison was settled government policy, adding that the disbanding of the obsolete prisons at Tower Street, Kingston, and the Spanish Town, St. Catherine, would free up sources of land for development in both urban centers. The revelations come after Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced on Sunday that the government is mulling over a new maximum security prison to house high-risk inmates who may direct violent crime on the outside. Chang said that the high-risk fortress would be part of the wider Heartlands Correctional Center. The decrepit state of Jamaica's colonial-era main prisons has been cited as inhumane and the factor behind the 42% recidivism or reoffending rate among inmates. Construction of a new maximum security correctional center has been a contentious issue for many years, with then British Prime Minister David Cameron's offer of a £25 million prison with a proviso of deportees completing sentences there being snubbed by the government. Meanwhile, Arlington Turner, chairman of the Jamaica Federation of Corrections, has welcomed Holness's plan for a prison for high-risk inmates, contending that phone jamming technology installed at correctional facilities has not been successful in preventing communication with their cronies on the outside. It is correct to say that we have persons behind the bars who are in touch with the outside world, carrying out quite a lot of issues. We can't deny this. So if you can put the persons in a sterile space, there is nothing wrong with that, he said. Turner has also supported the government's plan to impose stiffer penalties on rogue correctional officers who facilitate communication between inmates and the co-conspirators. The Prime Minister declared during his presentation at the 79th Jamaica Labour Party Annual Conference on Sunday that a new corrections bill would hit correctional officers with custodial sentences if found to be abetting illegal activities. Turner told the news that such a measure was long overdue. The fact is, we've been saying this for quite some time. We have been asking the ministry to put things in place to remove these persons from amongst us, because what we find happening is that correctional officers get caught up in these issues and then go through the courts and end up back in the institution working, carrying out their normal function, which is not in keeping with what the law says, Turner said. However, he believes that the number of correctional officers colluding with prisoners to carry out crime is in the minority. I can clearly say that less than 2% of our correctional officers carry out any form of illegal activities. The majority of correctional officers are law-abiding citizens who carry out their functions according to the law, Turner said. But he still is a little skeptical about putting too much hope in declarations. I hope this is not just another announcement, because these announcements have been coming for quite some time and we see nothing happen, he said. NRC sees a further carnage during Christmas if new law doesn't take effect. Jamaicans are being warned that the country could experience what is being described by National Road Safety Council Vice Chairman Dr. Lucien Jones as a tsunami of road deaths if crashes continue unabated, particularly during the Christmas period when recklessness tends to increase among road users. Dr. Jones argued that resources need to be put in place now to prevent the worst, given that the new road traffic laws are not expected to come into force for the remainder of the year. The most recent crash report from the Transport Ministry's Road Safety Unit shows that up to Monday there were 365 crashes, resulting in 419 deaths. This compares to 413 deaths from 370 crashes for the similar period of 2021, when the country recorded 487 road fatalities, the highest number ever recorded in 1 year. What this means is that if we don't take serious measures to curb the carnage on the roads, we are going to exceed possibly the record number of people who died last year, Dr. Jones said. Comparing third quarter data, Dr. Jones said that in 2021, a total of 131 people died. So far this year, and we have the rest of November and December to come, 62 people have died. So it means that there is going to be a tsunami of road deaths if we don't stop. The RSU says excessive speed with no regard to conditions is the leading cause of crashes, with 114 such incidents so far this year and 133 last year. The second highest cause of collisions is motorists failing to keep to the proper traffic lane, followed by pedestrians walking or standing in roads. People in the 25 to 29 age group account for the majority of those killed so far this year. Dr. Jones said at this point there are only two obvious means to stop the carnage: enforcement and intense public education. That's it. It's unlikely that we are going to have the provisions of the new Road Traffic Act rolled out for this year for it to make an impact. It is unlikely that the long-awaited ticketing system is going to be rolled out for it to have an effect for this year. It therefore means that a lot will depend on the police to enforce the current laws of the country, and for us through the media, one-on-one community, public utterances, and organized campaigns to try to put a stop to the madness which continues on our roads daily. He said the entire country by year-end needs to be resourced and galvanized to prevent the bloodletting on the nation's roads. We all know that people tend to drive more recklessly, drink more, are on the roads more, don't wear helmets, don't use seatbelts, and do all kinds of things during the Christmas period. So we have a challenge, he stated. Dr. Jones's remarks come days after the NRSC joined the international community in the observance of November 20, as World Day of Remembrance for the millions of people who perished in road crashes annually. The day was adopted on October 26, 2005 by the United Nations General Assembly as the appropriate acknowledgement for victims of road traffic crashes and their families. The occasion provides a platform for victims and their families to acknowledge the work of the emergency services, brings attention to the generally inadequate legal response to culpable road deaths and injuries, and advocates an appropriately serious response, advocates better support for road traffic victims and the victims' families, and promotes evidence-based actions to prevent and eventually stop further road traffic deaths and injuries. This year, World Day of Remembrance focused on justice, traffic law enforcement, and the thorough and consistent investigation of crashes to examine whether a crime was committed and bring criminal prosecution where appropriate and civil compensation. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates.